Of course it is.
Read your Bible as interpreted by experts.
I think that view is headed for a deep mischief.
Just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
It is Mystery Bible Theater 3000. My name is Caleb Hegg. With me, my lovely assistant, Rob Vanhoff. This is the second time we're trying this because I forgot to turn our audio on the first time we tried to record it, so we recorded 3 minutes and 36 seconds without even realizing that nobody could hear us. My bad. Sorry. How's it going, Rob?
Going well.
All right. We're going to jump right into this because we've already done this once. See Hegg at TorahResource.com, CHEGG at TorahResource.com. That's where you can send your videos under 5 minutes, please, or give us timestamps. And then, of course, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. This video that we're watching today came to my attention just a few minutes ago. In fact, we had a whole nother video keyed up, ready to go. And Rob jumped on with me and he said, hey, have you seen what's going on X? And just like the previous 3 minutes and 36 seconds. I'm going to say it again. I like Elon Musk, but I really do think that changing the name from Twitter to X is one of the stupidest things he's ever done. Anyway, all right. But he's fundamentally good, so whatever. Anyway, X is ablaze today because of Pope Francis, and we're going to be ablaze today too because of Pope Francis. He did an interview with 60 Minutes just the other day, I believe, and when we were looking for this clip, so Rob jumped on, he said, hey, have you seen this? I said, no. We jumped online to find it. We looked at a couple of clips from this 60-minute interview. Every clip that I looked at, and there was only 3 that I looked at before I found it, but every clip that I looked at had theological errors and problems in it. And not even from a Protestant to a Catholic standpoint. I mean, if I were a Catholic and I saw this interview, I would be just what is happening, right? I think that he's going against standard Orthodox Catholicism. What do you do in that? I mean, we've seen things like the Great Schism and whatnot, where there's been 2 popes. Now, that arose from other things. We've seen multiple popes at one time. We've seen all sorts of stuff, right? And, we've seen popes that have done some very not cool things, right? Popes having children and which I actually have no problem with a pope having a child, of course, but out of wedlock and according to the Catholic Church, they're not allowed to have kids apparently, or get married or whatever. So anyway, this is not the first time in history that we've seen a pope go into some major theological error. But it seems to me like the Catholic Church has been through enough. Shouldn't they be like, whoa, what are you doing here? Let's get this guy out. But they can't, right? Because they have to maintain that it's the mouthpiece of God. Anyway. Okay. Let's kick over. You want to say anything before we jump into Pope Francis?
Nope. Let's
just
jump in there.
Let's just do it. Here we go.
Let's jump in there.
When you look at the world, what gives you hope?
Todo.
Everything.
Uno ve tragedias.
You see tragedies,
pero ve
but you also see so many beautiful
tantas
things.
cosas lindas. Uno ve madres heroicas.
You see heroic mothers,
Hombres heroicos.
heroic men who have hopes and dreams,
mujeres que miran
women who
adelante.
look to the future.
Eso a mí me da
That
mucha
gives me a lot
esperanza.
of hope.
La gente quiere vivir.
People want to live.
La gente
People
va
forge
adelante.
ahead. And people are
Gente
fundamentally
es
good.
fundamentalmente buena. Todos somos
We are all fundamentally
buenos.
good.
Por ahí somos un poco
Yes, there
pícaros,
are some rogues and
pecadores,
sinners,
pero
but the
el
heart
corazón
itself
es bueno.
is good.
Okay, so once again, I think that this goes directly contrary to Catholic doctrine, first of all. Second of all, if we are all fundamentally... Now, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, is it a Protestant... I mean, I've studied Catholicism and Protestantism and the Reformation at length. Maybe I'm mixed up. Does the Catholic Church believe that that the heart, in the fall of man, in terms of that sin has made everyone, has tainted everyone? Don't they have to believe in like purgatory? If everyone's fundamentally good, then okay, then I understand like, yeah, you'd need purgatory for the sinners who have sinned and now have come back. But if everybody's fundamentally good, then really you don't need, I mean, everybody's fundamentally good. Some of the sinners might fall and whatnot, but for the most part.
There's some rogue.
Yeah, exactly.
Sinners.
But
sinners is a rogue. It's not the norm.
There's no need for Christ in that.
Isn't rogue is something that's like just on the, like, it's just a small minority could be rogue, right? If everybody's doing it, it's not rogue. I think rogue means like, it's not the norm. So what I'm hearing him say is that we are all fundamentally good, and that there are some sinners, and that those are minority. This reminds me of, is this an Arminian viewpoint? Like, in terms of humans are generally good, they're born good, they get corrupted in this world.
It's funny,
but they retain a core that's good, and so they can see clearly. So when they hear the gospel, they know it's good, and they can choose it. And they're choosing. That shows that they are good. They know they can recognize wisdom when they see it. They can recognize truth when they hear it, and they therefore. And so, and if we're fundamentally good, that means humans' hopes and dreams are good. It's just not a biblical message.
Okay, it's 1853. This is interesting. Anyway, number 3 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Number 3. I just looked this up on the fly. I think everybody heard me typing. 1853 of number 3. Sins can be distinguished according to their objects, as can every human act, or according to the virtues they oppose, by excess or defect, or according to the commandments they violate. They can also be classed according to whether they concern God, neighbor, or oneself. They can be divided into spiritual and carnal sins, or again, as sins in thought, word, deed, or omission. The root of sin is the heart of man. In his free will, according to the teaching of the Lord, for out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, fornication, theft, false witness, slander. These are what defile a man. But in the heart also resides charity, the source of the good and pure works which sin wounds. See, so I think that there is a fundamental difference between what I believe and what I think evangelicals believe, as opposed to what the Catholic Church believes, right? Because I would say that it is the Lord who grants us the ability to have charity. And I was reading actually this morning. I wish I had it next to me. I was reading a sermon by McShane on the love of Christ, and he talks about how, in that sermon, he talks about how the heart ultimately always wants to go against God. We want to run and hide from God at all times. We want to be against God at all times. But it is He even like brings up the point, well, what about people who don't feel like that? And the point is that we, the closer we get to holiness, if it's not for God to change our heart, the more we want to push away from it, because we don't have the ability to be holy of ourselves. It's only through the grace of God and the love of God that we are able to come close to Him.
Yeah, and there's a giant flaw in the human heart. I mean, we've been reading. If you're on the 1-year Torah cycle, it's Leviticus, but the sons of Aaron, the two oldest sons of Aaron, when they erect the Mishkan, the tabernacle is set up. They go through the whole week of sanctification. Right. The glory of God fills the tabernacle. Everybody's falling on their face. And then Nadav and Avihu grab strange fire and run it and think that they're going to go in and worship God, and they get fried instantaneously. Like, where did that come from? Like, what is God teaching us here? It's that there's a problem with the heart that is disobedient, that wants to invent and affirm a righteousness of our own, like wants to validate our own inventions, validate our own ideas as good and proper. And a huge, sobering message there is not what I said, right? I mean, from God, like you, God is zealous for his own holiness.
You got it wrong,
right?
You got it wrong, right?
Yeah, wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to bring that
it's
up.
a wrong that like, and then Aaron is like, Aaron can't. He's not allowed to mourn, right? He's not allowed to tear his clothing or anything. Like, it's a major moment in a communication about God's holiness, and we should all be suspicious of our hearts. That's why it says, take every thought captive to Christ. Why? Because we don't just take our thought and think, oh, just like we say, well, I felt like it, or I feel this. You don't trust your feelings. You don't trust your thoughts. You have to, we have a measure. We have a standard by which we take and look at something. If I just say my heart is fundamentally good, that's a problem. And I should be sure to point out the ability, the very ability or the skill to recognize thoughts and feelings and to take them to obedient to the Messiah is itself a work of the Holy Spirit. That's new creation life that's growing in us. That's not our own fundamental goodness that is able to get that skill, or quote fundamental goodness. Well,
in Romans 3:10 and 11, Paul quotes the Psalms, right? He says, "As it is written, none is righteous, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one."
So who's the Pope appeasing here? Is he trying to be?
I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I don't think this Pope doesn't seem to want to appease anyone. He doesn't care. What he's doing is he's pandering to
That's what I mean. Who's he pandering to?
I think that, honestly, I think that the church has come so far that they are mixing. They want to bow to modern culture. Now, he didn't go so far as to say that, obviously he opposes homosexual marriage in the same interview. So he hasn't gone that far yet. But ultimately, I think that the church is on its way. When I say the church, I mean the Catholic Church. I think a lot of other churches are already gotten there. But with this kind, he's bowing to certain forms of cultural wants, and because instead of holding the orthodox line, and because of that, I think that there are problems. I think that he's going to eventually, the church will continue to go downhill in this way, unless, of course, they get another, a very conservative pope next.
Which is possible.
The thing is that this should concern us as evangelicals. And the reason it should concern us as evangelicals is because the Catholic Church, although they have many errant doctrines, and, at the Council of Trent, they affirmed salvation by works and so on and so forth. I mean, even though they've done this, they are they're one of the largest sects, if not the largest sect of Christianity. What they say and where they go in terms of their moral compass affects all of us and the whole world. It does affect the whole world, but it also affects evangelicals. If the Catholic Church upholds strict conservative values, then we have others around us, even if we disagree in theology, we have others around us who are upholding conservative values. So for a pope to come out and say, "Hey, don't worry about it, everybody's good." Now, once again, I think that this does actually play to the Catholic Church's theology. But the point is, for me, that no, we need to see ourselves for what we truly are. We are sinful, and there is a great
depravity.
need.
Right? Is there?
We are depraved.
Depravity. Is there a
great depravity?
Does Catholicism have a doctrine of depravity? I don't know. But
let's look. Depravity. I mean, my Catholic knowledge is being really, the light is shining on how little I know about Catholic doctrine at this point. I thought I knew more than I do. However, even strictly Augustinian Catholics disagree with the Protestant doctrine of total depravity. So, referring to Scripture and the Church Fathers, Catholicism views human free will as deriving from God's image because humans are created in God's image. So, I mean, I think that this is something that the Pope is not going off kilter or off script here when it comes to Catholic doctrine. However, I think that this shows one of the big differences between Protestantism and Catholicism.
At least Reformed tradition, as expressed in Reformed, right? That I just to differentiate, Arminianism, the idea of like, oh no, you've got a good free will, like you have, every individual has a capacity to hear and evaluate the truth just by means of being a human, which I don't believe that. I believe we need the Scripture teaches us that we need a regenerated heart in order to discern God's will. We wouldn't know a good, if it bit us in the mirror.
Smacked us in the face. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, once again, this is just to say that I think that this highlights the differences that we have in theology. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that there are I believe that there are Catholics who are saved, of course. And not only that, but I think that the amount of Catholics that are saved are probably going to be shocking to Protestants. And we have to always remember this. God preserved the Scriptures, and he preserved many core doctrines that we hold to through the Catholic Church. We owe a great debt to the Catholic Church. I know that sounds weird for people who are evangelicals, for Protestants, for people in the Torah movement. So many people came into the Torah movement through the idea that the Catholic Church is the whore of Babylon, right? And that the Antichrist is the Pope and all these kind of things. That's fine if you want to believe that. But the point is that whether you believe that or not, the Bible that you read today is around because of the Catholic Church. God preserved his word through the Catholic Church. That's all there is to it. And I don't know why he would do that, but he did. And so that doesn't make the Catholic Church right about their doctrines. It just means that we do owe them something. We owe them the fact that they have preserved for us what we hold so dear.
There's nuance to that. There's a great article that Daniel Wallace sent me where he deals with the claim of the Catholics with respect to guardianship.
Ooh, send it to me. Well, if I'm just sitting here spouting off nonsense, then you got to share.
That. I didn't know. This is
man. All right. Well, next week we'll replay this video, and Rob will be able to show me how I'm totally wrong.
No, it is. I agree that God knows who belong to him, and he knows each and every of their hearts and their situation, and he draws them to him. And just because someone's affiliated with a certain denomination at one snapshot in history is not a final judgment on.
Well, this brings up the fact also, Mike Winger's been doing a huge amount of work on Benny Hinn. And one of the pushbacks that he's been getting from people is, because he's exposed that Benny Hinn has recently, he has come out and said that he apologized and that he repented from swindling people and from taking poor people's money. This was back in 2019, I believe. But then since then, he's done the exact same thing. And Mike Winger has exposed, false healings and all these kind of things. And Benny Hinn, instead of repenting, has responded by trying to get all of Mike Winger's videos taken down. But one of the criticisms that Winger has come up against is, well, I was saved at a Benny Hinn revival, or, I was truly healed at a Benny Hinn revival, or, whatever it may be. And the point, once again, is God can use whatever he wants. Whether or not the Scriptures were preserved or not, God used the Catholic Church. It was definitely a pawn on the board, or maybe even a greater piece than a pawn on the board that was used by God.
God used the Masoretes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
To preserve the Tanakh. That doesn't mean that the Masoretes, they're right. It doesn't mean that they have Yeah. So,
and that's not what I was saying. I wasn't trying to say that the Catholic Church was in any way right. I'm just saying that God uses who he will use. And we see this specifically in the Balaam oracles, right?
oh, God. Yeah.
So anyway, all right. There you go. We'll be back next week. I'm going to try. So I haven't even listened to my out music here to see if it's going to work or not. But we're going to try it. So we'll be back next week as we attempt to go through a different video, one that I had keyed up for this week. We hope that you enjoyed. We'll be back Wednesday, 8:30. 8:30, not 9:30, 8:30. Come and join us. All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.